Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us for this interesting interview with Rosie. My name is Dr. Jo White. I'm a clinical psychologist and advanced certified schema therapist and supervisor, and I'm based in the UK. And I'm really happy to be here today with our guest, Rosie, who is going to talk to us about cluster C personality disorders today. So, Rosie, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you, Joe. My name is Rosi. My last name is Reubsaet. It's very Dutch, so I don't think that many people abroad will be able to pronounce it, but so Rosi is okay. I'm also a clinical psychologist based in the Netherlands. And so for the last 20 years, I have been working with the schema therapy, both individual and in groups. And for the last 5 years, we run our own mental health care facility in the southern part of the Netherlands. And over there, we only practice schema therapy. So you can say I dream about schema therapy. We have been working a lot with this phase-oriented approach for schema therapy. And in the past, I've talked about the more elemental things about this approach. And I'm very happy today to highlight some of the specifics of this approach in working with cluster C patients.
Thank you, Rosie. So, Rosie and I did an interview, gosh, back in, I think it might have been summer 2022.
I think
Um,
so. It was COVID time, right?
yeah. So you'll find that video on my YouTube channel at Schema Therapy Works. If you'd like to go and have a look at that, and Rosie describes beautifully with loads of lovely examples. And I think we might have talked about some exercises that people can do as well in that interview about phased orientated approach. So that's really useful
Yeah.
way of thinking about structuring your schema therapy, because it's a long-term therapeutic model, isn't it? And I think lots of us get a bit lost along the way, and having those phases to focus on can be really helpful. So do go and visit that video if you're interested in finding more about that, and buy Rose's book as well, which is full of experiential exercises that you can easily translate either into individual or group
Yeah.
intervention. So do go and buy that as well. Um,
Thank you.
so today, cluster C patients, and
Yes.
you've got a presentation to share with us as well, Rosie.
Yes, I do. Let's see if it's over here. I'll just put on the presentation mode. Okay, you can see this?
I can, yeah.
Okay, great. So this is what Joe just said. This is what I am going to talk about. And it's going to be a short presentation, and Joe and I will discuss some of the things that are on the slides. And then in the end, I will show you a video of a group setting. And it shows an exercise that you can use more to the end of the therapy when you are working on strengthening the healthy adults. Now, some backgrounds of working with cluster C personality disorders, and I assume most of you know this, but I think it's always nice to start with this because it's what we also call the anxious cluster, and that also gives some ideas of what is important to work on during the therapy. And the anxious cluster is, of course, the avoidant personality disorder, the dependent personality disorder, and the obsessive compulsive personality disorder. When we do group therapy, we have these three personality disorders in one group. So we don't make a difference between these three. We like to have separate groups for cluster B personality disorders and cluster C personality disorders because as you maybe agree with me after this presentation, it's different for you as a therapist of what you do in working with cluster C personality disorders and what you do with more cluster B personality disorders. So I think it's easier if you can separate them in separate groups. But I also have a lot of colleagues who work in groups with both cluster C and cluster B in one group. So that's also possible. And in this presentation, I will also talk about the working individually with cluster C personality disorders. It's a highly prevalent cluster of personality disorders, but it has had relatively little scientific attention so far. And the things that we know from scientific research is that there are high levels of alexithymia, that is of not feeling a thing, feeling numb, not able to connect it to feelings, and also a lower level of metacognitive mastery. And that means that you are able to think about your feelings or to know what triggers you and what feelings come when you get triggered. These are things that are not so developed in patients with cluster C personality disorders. We also know that they have the same physiological response to these nasty movie clips. And they do this research with borderline personality disorders, and they see really aversive clips, and then the how do you call that? Different physiological symptoms are measured, like sweating or eye widening of the eyes. And research shows that these are the same in cluster C personality disorders, but they are less able to report about it. They don't notice it for themselves that well. So they feel a lot of things, but they are not so good at knowing what do I feel and what triggered it, and how can I handle it. And another interesting finding, especially when you try to do imagery work, is that patients with cluster C personality disorders have more trouble accessing their autobiographical memory. So, of course, the memories are there, but it's a lot more difficult to connect to them or to get images of them as a little child. So you have to be persistent, use different ways to get to that.
That's really interesting, Rosie. That's something that I've noticed that I didn't realize was a pattern for this group of patients.
Yeah, I only realized it when I dived into the research, because these are patients who say very often, I don't have a memory, there's nothing coming," and then you're like, "Oh, okay, now what?"
Yeah, or you have these sort of vague sort of aspects of memories, but not anything to really grasp hold of.
Exactly. And it's also something that my patients say. Well, it's like this whole thing of just feeling a bit this, of just not feeling okay, but precisely as you say, Joe, it's not a nice image you can step into and work with. So it's it's a pattern in these patients. Yeah. Also, when we talk a bit more about what is difficult in working with these cluster C patients, is that, well, of course, for everybody, coping is very successful, but in these patients, it's even more successful, because it's when you their coping mode is a perfect way to soothe anxiety, to have no fear, no anxiety of trying new things. When we start chemotherapy, we really try to get to bypass the coping modes. But for these patients, it really feels like you take away their safety. because their coping mode is connected to feeling comfortable, to having control, to not be overwhelmed by feelings. So you have to talk about the connection between the link between their coping mode and their complaints, their psychological complaints. For example, I don't know if you recognize this, Joe, but very often a patient with class C personality disorders comes to therapy because he feels depressed and he wants to feel better. He wants to feel more happy. He wants to feel better. But in their in their line of thinking, that means their coping mode has to be more successful. They have to be able to block feelings, to have more control of their life, so that none of these unexpected things will happen, so they don't get these nasty negative feelings. So they think that more coping is a solution to feeling better. And we as chemotherapists think it's the other way around, that their coping mode is making them numb and depressed and feeling not only more negative things, but also too little happy things. So you have to take them along in your therapy idea. Yeah.
Is it possible to make the presentation bigger, Rosie? We can't quite see the cartoon. I don't know if
Oh, really?
if there's sort of the
Let's see.
presenter
How can I do
mode.
that?
Do you see the three little
Oh,
icons at the bottom?
the
And
three
one of them's
little.
there's a pen and
Yes.
then there's a circle and something in the middle. I wonder if you press the one in the middle, whether that makes it bigger.
No, it doesn't make it.
It doesn't. Okay, don't worry. I can see it. I just have to put my glass. Ah, there we go. There we go.
This
Yes.
is better? Okay.
Perfect.
Okay,
Lovely.
I had to switch from presentation, so
Ah, is that still okay for you can see what you need to?
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Lovely. Thank you.
Yeah, I love the cartoon. So
Yeah.
I'm very happy that you ask to see it, because I think it's very, and it's also very I can relate to this myself, right? I
Yeah.
also have very nice day when I can act like there's nothing wrong and everything is a rose garden. So this, in the end, this means that you have to work hard as a therapist, to explain this to patients and to make them aware of how their pattern is working against them and what change really means. So I also find this graph very useful. It's about the window of tolerance. And as I said earlier, it's in our experience, it's a bit different if you work with cluster B patients in comparison to working with cluster C patients, because patients with more cluster B personality disorders, they are very easily over aroused, so they go out of the window on the upper side of the graph. So as a therapist, you have to do things to regulate them and to keep them in the window and stay calm and be able to mentalize and learn. So you have to do some of these regulating exercises. And very often, in the contrary, with patients who have more cluster C personality disorders, they are more hypo-aroused. They're feeling too little. There's no arousal or there's no tension. And when there is not enough feeling, things won't change. When you stay in your comfort zone all the time, well, you feel comfortable, but there's not happening very much. So as a therapist, you have to help them to get more aroused, so they go into the window where change, where the arousal is optimal, and they can learn and process things. This is, you can relate to this, Joe?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
So there are several tasks for the therapist in working with these patients, is that you have to realize from their perspective that it's very hard to give up your comfort zone. And that you also have to be prepared for resistance, because I think it's very human. Many of us are not that willing to give up their comfort zone. So you can, yeah, I can have empathy with that very easily. So there is where the resistance comes. So it also means that you do a lot of empathic confrontations with these Cluster C patients and to make them aware of how they are repeating their pattern if they stay in their coping mode. It's also important that you lower your expectations. You don't have to expect that the change is going very fast or that there will be that there will be a very progress will be very quick. They are more like these trains that start very slowly and then take some time to come up to speed. It's also important that you give a lot of psychoeducation. Well, I think that's something we do in every therapy, but with these patients, it's a lot of psychoeducation about the importance of feeling, how feeling develops during childhood. And as therapy progresses, it's important that you push a bit for change. In the beginning, it's a bit more guiding, and later on, it's a bit more pushing. Because I think these patients are also patients that can be in therapy for very long, because the therapy is kind of like a safe place. It's a therapist who's very understanding. There's a lot of room to talk about your issues. It's very warm, very safe. But in the end, these patients want a better life. So they have to practice with the things they learn in therapy to do that in their daily life. And that's not going to happen from itself. This very often needs some pushing by the therapist. And I also think about my children in these cases. When something is happening in school, when there's some bullying going on, they don't want to go. But that's not really an option to avoid and not go to school. I talk with them about how can you handle it, what can you do, how can you manage, how can you get support, but you have to go. So that's a bit the same for these patients.
Do you find that there's high levels of dropout of treatment for cluster C?
No, it's when there is dropout, it's at the beginning. When you talk about when you explain this link connection between their psychological complaints and their coping mode, and then some people realize, oh, but I don't want to dive into my history. I don't want to look to the roots where this came from. I just want relief of my complaints. Then there is some dropout, but further on in the process, that's not my experience. No.
Okay, so the resistance comes in the beginning when people perhaps recognize the task ahead, but once they've accepted that, then they tend to be committed.
Exactly. And as I'm going to show you in a few slides, that's a very big topic to work on in the beginning, this resistance and work through this resistance. Yeah. So when we talk about this phase-oriented approach, it's very helpful to think of a therapy phase as something that a child goes through also. A child also has several developmental phases. And kind of in the same way, a patient develops through the therapy process in several phases. And in the beginning, it's always about safety and connection, creating a safe therapy relationship. So that in the next phase, the clients can express his pain, talk about the schemas. We start a trauma recovery in those phases. And then later on in therapy, the clients gets more feeling of what person he is and what he has to deal with in life. And that kind of is the same as you do with children. And I also always think it's very helpful to think about being a parent of an adolescent is something very different from being a parent of a baby. And when you think about limited reparenting, it's very easy to think that, as a therapist, you do different things when somebody is later on in the therapy process than when somebody is early on in the process. And I think we all do that automatically. We don't think about it. All therapists do that, but I think it can be very helpful to make that more explicit and dividing it in these phases, connecting a specific need to it can give some structure to your therapy and what parents you have to be for your therapist, for your clients. So when we connect this phase-oriented approach to the cluster C personality disorders, in the beginning, talking about safety can be a pitfall because we think about safety as the need for basic safety, as there's no violence in your house, there are parents who look after you, you don't have to be afraid all the time, that there's no food, there's nobody taking care of you. But for patients with cluster C personality disorders, safety, they think about safety more as a comfort zone. When I'm safe, that means that I'm not stressed, I don't have to do anything difficult, I don't have to cope with negative feelings. I'm just comfortable and relaxed, but that's not the safety we mean in schema therapy. So you focus on creating arousal. Think about this window of tolerance graph. The arousal has to go up for things to happen. So early on in the therapy, it's important that you help the patient connect to the vulnerable child as soon as possible. And as I said earlier, this emotional part is tucked away very well. So you really have to make that important from early on the therapy, that there are emotions, everybody has emotions, and you have to connect to them to be able to cope with the emotions. You also have to focus on the expression of emotions. And it's important that you really literally move a lot. So we do a lot of exercises with standing up, walking through the room, because sitting and talking is their comfort zone. And there is the risk that not much is happening when you just sit and talk about the things. So this is what I just said about working with resistance. In the start phase, of course, you want the therapy to be a bit of a warm bath. You have to create this safe therapy relationship, and an important goal, a developmental goal, is that the client becomes aware that he has a coping mode, because for these patients it's very I only know the Dutch word. It's very natural and automatic to them. They don't conceive of them, they don't look at themselves that, oh, I have coping mode. So they have to be aware of that. And they also have to get aware that this coping mode is connected to their symptoms. And you only can manage that when you kind of juggle with the resistance, be a bit confrontational, but also have a lot of empathy, because you don't want to push them into the resistance. You have to work with the resistance. So they can experience it for themselves, how their coping mode is connected to their symptoms and keeps the emotions away. So then in the middle phases, it's what we like to call a bit more cold shower. That is the phase that really something has to happen. So there has to be arousal, and there only can be arousal when there is less coping mode. And you really want this to happen in this phase, because that's the only way that the client can experience that he can cope with emotions and that needs can be fulfilled, and that they are safe when there is no coping mode. But it's very uncomfortable for them to give up their coping mode. So that really needs some pushing and some cold water added to the warm bath, because in the end you want them to get out of the bath. And when it's just warm and nice and comfortable and bubbly, they're not going to leave the bath. So that's the cold shower idea. And then toward the end phases, then that's the phase that you really have to push for change a bit more. We try to make that happen by decreasing the therapy frequency. The start and the middle phases are weekly sessions, and then the end phase is once a month. And then they have the chance to experiment with the things that they've learned in therapy, experience that they can try something. Some things will go right, some things will go wrong. So they just struggle through daily life, as we all do every day. And then they come back to the session and talk about the things that went well, the things that need some more practicing. You build some confidence by experience that you fall, but that you also can get up and start walking again. And that's for that it's very helpful to decrease the number of sessions and have some time in between, so they can experience this for themselves. And of course they fall, we all fall, but you get up and you try again. That's what life is about.
I think that fear of being flooded with emotions is one that I think crops up quite a lot with this group that I sort of recognize. And so how do you help people to manage that initial sort of, oh gosh, what if I do get in touch with my emotions? They're just going to be too big and too overwhelming. I can't go anywhere near them.
Yeah. If it's if it they have experienced it during the therapy. So there should be in the end phase, there should be some confidence that they have managed it before, and that of course it's nobody likes to feel negative things. Yeah, I don't think there's a person in the world who says, "Oh, great, let's have some fear today." So I think nobody. These are feelings that are aversive for every person, but it's very logical that we have them. So the only thing they have to do is to get some confidence in that they can handle it, and in being exposed to these feelings in the therapy sessions helps to build this confidence. That is why I really like group therapy with these patients, because in a group they have witnessed it with each other also. And by seeing that another person also has this fear, but connects to the emotions, gets overwhelmed, but lives anyway, just life goes on, that's very helpful for these patients. So if you're able to see them in a group, I think it's very, very helpful for these processes. And during the therapy, you know, this healthy adult concept in schema therapy, it's not something that just pops up when you wake up in the morning. So, ta-da, there is my healthy adult. No, it's something that you develop step by step, just as a baby starts developing and then over time is 18 years old and can function in his own life. That's a bit the same way of working with the healthy adult mode. You can do it step by step. And when you when you try to look at the phases and how you work with this healthy adult mode, it starts with exploring how the modes interact. And remember how I talked about in the beginning that these patients are a bit less developed in the metacognitive skills. That is something you work on in these exercises by being able to take some distance from themselves, look at how the modes interact, have some idea of what triggers which modes. That really helps to develop this mentalizing and metacognitive abilities. In the middle phase of therapy, it's about really creating corrective emotional experiences. So you really want the patients to interact with the destructive mode so that they experience that their needs can be fulfilled, that they are able to handle destructive emotions. And the end phase is all about strengthening the healthy adult and staying in control, being able to deal with negative emotions, not by putting them away, putting them aside, but staying in touch with them. And for this end phase, we have a very nice exercise. It's also in the book. I believe page 187 or something. And it's called What's Your Plan? And it's a group exercise, but you can also do it in individual therapy. And it's an exercise in which you help the patient to stay in control while also staying in touch with the modes that get triggered all the time. And I would like to show a video where you can see us in action doing this exercise.
Great, that'd be lovely.
Yeah.
I'd like to see a demonstration.
Yeah. I'll show you first the graphical outline. It's you need 3 chairs. You can see them. One chair is for the child mode. The other chair is for the dysfunctional modes. Mostly it's a parent mode and a coping mode, a bit combined. This voice in your head that keeps saying, "Oh, don't do it. It's not a good idea. Just avoid." And then the third chair is for the healthy adults. And the chairs are kind of like the way they are in a bus. So the healthy adult chair is like the bus driver just looking to the road. And then in the back seats, there are these more dysfunctional modes, trying to get the driver off track and losing direction. So this is a bit the outline of the exercise. And what you see in the video is that I play the patients. So I am on my healthy adult chair and I'm talking about a struggle I have in my life. I have to ask my boss something, but I'm a bit anxious to do that. I'm afraid he won't take me serious. So that's a struggle what I'm dealing with, and I'm developing a plan to do this anyway, and the group members are helping me by playing these dysfunctional modes, but also by strengthening the healthy adults and thinking along with me to have a good plan to be successful in talking to my boss. Shall I show the video?
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Oh, did I share computer sound, or was I too fast?
Oh, I'm not sure. If you stop sharing and start sharing again, then you can check whether the sound is checked.
Let's see, where is... Oh, no, I didn't. So now I did. And there it is.
Great.
I'm going to play this a bit.
Chair work.
It's a long video.
And she wants to change something. Are we going to work this out in chairs?
Okay, Susan, so you are the chair of the Healthy Adult, and you told us about your different modes with your struggle, so we're going to address them. So, Dorothy, can you start?
Oh no, I'm so afraid he will be angry about me. I don't want to do this. No, I'm so afraid. No, I can do this. No.
Okay.
You don't have to do it.
No.
It's a very stupid idea. Don't do it. What are you thinking? You are happy at the place. Please, don't do anything else.
Just let it go.
Yeah.
Okay, good, thank you.
Okay, Susan, is that what's happening inside?
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
exactly how
can
it
see it.
sounds inside.
Can we see it? That she reacted?
Yeah, that did it very well.
Yeah.
Good that you notice it.
Yeah.
So now, at this chair, you're the Healthy Adult.
Okay.
Maybe you can change a bit in your way of sitting, yeah? Yeah, feel the power. Feel how it's in the bus behind you, but you are the driver. The Healthy Adult part is the driver.
You
And
see
have a
the
goal.
horizon, but you also know you have to take care of little Susan. Okay? You're responsible.
Oh yeah.
Okay,
So what is your plan? What
What is
are
your
you going
plan?
to do with your boss?
great.
Well, my plan is that I really want to talk to my boss. Something has to change. I'm not happy. I'm bored.
Oh
I really
no.
want some more variations in my work.
Oh no. I'm too afraid. No. I can't do this. I can't do this. No.
scared.
I'm scared.
And at the same time, you cannot tell your boss. I mean, you can discuss, but it's not about telling. I mean, there's a hierarchy. I mean, he's your boss, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
for sure.
Yes.
There's nothing for you to want. Come on,
Yes.
No.
slow down a bit.
Susan, do they sense this right? This
Yeah.
fear and this critical side?
Yeah. I was thinking I can.
That's what's happening?
Yeah, exactly. I can also go one day less, then it's fixed also.
Yeah. But you're in the Healthy Adult.
Yeah,
now. See
okay,
your
yeah,
goal.
I'm in
See your
the
goal. You
healthy
see it?
adult. Yeah.
You see the aim?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I can
Okay,
see
help
it.
her.
So, what is your plan?
Yeah, this really has to change. I like working there, I like my colleagues, but I'm bored and I really want to have some more variation.
But you can work one day less. Why don't you go and work one day less?
That will just be more, then I will just be, no, that's not a good idea.
That's not your plan. Okay, what is your plan? Go on.
My plan is that I really want to change this. I don't want to go around it all the time. I want to talk to my boss. So I think I'm gonna send him an email.
But you have to take, yeah, please, you have to be aware. He can also be angry if he reads the email. He can really be angry with you or
know,
shout at you.
I'm so scared when somebody gets
Yes.
angry with me. I don't know if I can handle that.
No. He's going to tell everybody, and then I'm so ashamed already. No, please.
And besides, I'm not sure if emailing is a good idea. I mean, isn't that sort of a little bit cowardly just to send an email? Or maybe he doesn't interpret it really well and he doesn't know what I mean.
Yes.
And it causes only more conflict.
Do they sense this right? Is this your dilemma? Yes?
Yeah,
they got it. They
I
got it.
struggle.
Okay.
But I don't want to avoid.
What's your
I really
plan?
don't want to avoid.
Healthy driver, what's your plan for little
Yeah,
Susan?
I understand why she's scared. I know that, but I know that my boss is prepared to listen, but I have to get his attention. So that is what I want to send this mail about, to ask him to make some time for me, because I want to talk about something that is important for me.
Okay, who believes
Yeah.
her? Is she authentic? What do you think?
Yes.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
believe her?
Yeah.
Okay, this sounds
Yes.
really strong.
Yes.
Stronger than the last time.
Yes.
But then, after what? Then, what will you do?
Good. You help her.
Yeah,
You mean when I'm in the office?
yeah,
with him?
yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, well, I didn't think about
What's
that
your
yet.
plan?
What's my plan? When I'm in his office? Well, I think I'm just going to say it. I really like to work here.
No, 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 no. Oh no, that's no, no. I'm afraid. Yeah, yeah, I'm afraid now. I don't think you can do that.
Okay, maybe this is a good moment to stop the video. And
That's
to go
great.
to the last slides.
There's your book.
Shall I stop share so that we can discuss it a bit?
Yeah, yeah.
Let's see, where is there?
That looked like a really collaborative but fun way of helping somebody to think through all of the dilemmas, because I liked how there was different layers of challenge that came along from the different group members as the ideas developed. In the
Exactly,
classroom.
exactly, and it's exactly how you say it. It's about thinking through the plan, but also feeling through the plan.
Mhm.
And like in our life, also when you're gonna do something difficult, you have to start with step A, but it's not gonna stop with the first step. There's gonna be next steps, and you really have to see it through to the end to really make sure that your needs get met. And in this video, it takes 15 minutes. And in real life, when you do this in a group or in an individual session, it also takes 15 to 20 minutes to really go through these different layers of feelings and having a plan that comprises several steps and really making sure that you reach your goal. So it's a very nice way to practice and just stay in control, but also being triggered and feeling, oh my God, I'm not gonna succeed. No, but you have to. So yeah, rise up again, think through. Yeah.
And it was a nice connection to the types of dilemmas maybe that this client group will have in terms of, actually, I want life to be more fulfilling, more satisfying. That's the goal.
Yeah.
And so that requires managing difficult feelings that might come along and not using the avoidant protector to manage that. And so how many sessions might this be into your group therapy work? She said it's more towards the end of the plan. Do you have a limited number of sessions in group therapy?
Yeah, especially with Cluster C patients, we like to have a limited number of sessions because that is also a way to keep some pressure on it and to keep the focus on, well, one day this warm bath will end and then you have to go into your life and make it happen for yourself. So we work with 40 sessions in total. So then the first phase is 15 sessions, then the second phase is 15 sessions, and then this end phase is also 8 to 10 monthly sessions. So that's a bit the therapy plan that we work with. And when you work in an individual way with Cluster C personality disorders, we also have the same therapy plan. And maybe it's nice to know that this exercise, you can also do it in individual therapy, but then you multitask as a therapist. The patient keeps this front bus driver seat, and then the therapist switches between the different chairs. The therapist does these dysfunctional chairs, but he also helps the patient in making a plan and thinking through the steps that are needed.
Yeah, I can see how that would work.
Yeah.
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 Mm.
So, and it's very I think it's also in group, especially in group, it's a very nice exercise, because everybody is active and they can really help each other. So that's it's very rewarding to do that.
Yeah, it looked like a really fun way of managing something that feels very tricky for people.
Yeah.
And so in your book, Rosie, do you talk specifically about cluster C?
The book is primarily about cluster B patients. In the last chapter, there's something about cluster C patients. But in my experience, many every chapter also has an exercise part. That's kind of it doesn't matter if you use the exercises with the more cluster B or the cluster C patients. The book is the theory in the book is more about regulating the emotions. Well, that's a bit more applicable to the cluster B patients, but the exercises, there are also, you can use them for all kinds of patients. Yeah, and we also get very nice feedback on that. Especially in the Netherlands, there are a lot of people who use the exercise in the book, and they all say that they find it very good to handle in different patient categories.
And that's one of the lovely things about the schema therapy model, isn't it? That we can use it transdiagnostically.
Exactly. Yeah. There are also exercises that we use in our peer supervision groups. So, we all have schemas and modes. So,
yeah, it's useful to be able to pull those into supervision as well.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
also in supervision. What is your plan? You can imagine doing that in the supervision, when somebody is struggling with a really difficult patient, you can imagine doing this exercise also,
Yeah, that would be really helpful. Oh, it's been so helpful to have your expertise, Rosie, talking through cluster C. I think it's probably one of the areas of schema therapy that doesn't get as much attention as some of the other areas. So it's very helpful to have this overview and sense of how the work differs. That we're actually activating feelings rather than helping people to regulate their emotions, because that's quite a different direction to be going in, isn't it? And useful for people to really be holding that in mind as they're moving forwards with these clients, and thinking about time limited sessions too, which in the UK, then if people are working in the NHS, they'll have time limits, but if people are working independently, may not have those time limits. So useful conversation and supervision to be thinking about the clients that we ought to be putting a time limit on to help them to move forwards.
Yeah. I think that are two very nice take-home messages that you subtracted from my talk. So thank you.
I was listening very intently.
Yeah, I hear that.
Thank you so much for joining me.
It was a pleasure also. Thank you for the invitation, and let's do this again somewhere in the future.
Let's do it again. Yeah. No, it's been great. Thank you so much. And thank you everybody for joining us. Hope you found it informative. Okay. Bye then.
Bye.